Not Pirate Roberts writes, "Hi, boys. Love all the work that y'all do. In the spirit of the great Ira Scheffel, I have a twofer. Will we ever see a complete game from this team? Number two, will it matter given the current talent 1v1 from opponents we'll face in the playoffs? Will we ever see a complete game? We've seen close to a complete game.
Hey, this question wasn't for you.
He didn't say it was for
the
Ira.
Spirit was
I thought it was just solely for Ira.
You shut your mouth and let me run the show.
Yeah, that's my fault. Well, Ira is just Mr. Quiet over there.
So, no, I think you kind of saw something close to it against Syracuse. That's pretty close to a complete game as you're going to get. I mean, that was a total ass beating.
Yeah, except for the 4th and 4 decision. But yes, it was. It was. I
mean, that's not that's a decision. That's not a not complete.
In the yardage disparity. But the question, the answer is no. But I don't think you're going to see it from anyone anywhere. You might see some team like Michigan.
Yeah, on a given Saturday, you might see a complete game. Sure, that's happened before.
But Michigan's played such bad teams that it's hard to know. Like, they haven't even played a Duke yet.
Even when they got into conference play, it's been Michigan State. And
it's been awful teams.
Yeah.
But they've done what they're Nebraska, but they go and hammer.
I was going to say, the games, none of them have been remotely close.
Yeah,
they don't have a BC on the ledger.
Yeah, they go and hammer everyone they face. But the second part is... of
course, they also have the signs.
Well, that's true.
Hey, Norvell.
State hasn't done that yet.
Yeah, get off your ass and start stealing some signs. What are we doing around here? We're trying to win some football games.
You've got people listening to this show right now that if you pay for their tickets, they'll go and film whatever you want them to film.
Michigan so far this year, just a mundane 30-3 over East Carolina, 35-7. That's a pretty good UNLV team. 31-6 Bowling Green, 31-7 Rutgers, 45-7 Nebraska, 52-10 Minnesota, 52-7 Indiana, 49-0 Michigan State. Yeah, they have drubbed every single team they played. It's going to continue because they got Purdue next.
And then Penn State, right?
Then Penn State. And they're going to hammer Penn State as well. And then Maryland.
They won't do that because it'll be at Penn State, but they'll win that game. But it'll actually be a challenge. They'll be challenged.
Headed to Wake for the revenge tour stop. Hope it's a, hey, remember us, pads popping kind of game. Me too. Bring on the fake punts, onside kicks, double reverses. Heck, line up LHS at QB with a triple option. I am excited about the possibility that we hang a number here. I don't know that they will, but we're getting into the time of year where Mike will understand that this starts to become a beauty contest to some extent. And I understand you want to get a lot of people in, but there's an opportunity here to maybe really put a beat down on Wake. And, it gets easier and easier from a narrative standpoint for people to say, look, Florida State won in blowout fashion yet again. You start stockpiling blowout wins, it starts to bode well.
Well, and to that point about pads popping and even Jackson's point, you look at the fourth quarter and the way we closed out that game against Duke, you notice a lot of those runs, and I get Rodney's in for quite a few of those, they're downhill. We're getting downhill. That is exactly how you want to play Wake. It's how you want to play their front. So I wonder if maybe some of the game plan that we see in the first half, it mirrors what we saw in the fourth quarter against Duke. The thing I'd say, and I feel you when you're talking about a number might be coming, it just seems like all of the elements of the offense are starting to blend together rather than it being feast or famine, deep ball or nothing. It feels like there's levels to this whole thing, and it might start to be lining up very nicely for a good push here in the final 5 games.
Yeah, well, I think almost by force, they've been told that they're not going to be able to do the stuff they fell in love with early on. And so what that's forced Jordan and Mike and the rest of the team to do is to be patient and understand that, there are a lot of other facets to this offense that we can run, a lot of other guys that can contribute, and you can spread it around, really access every part of the field. And eventually big plays will happen because you'll force them out of that too deep shell. But a lot of teams have really done that. And I would do it too. I think that's the right plan playing Florida State, is to force them to be patient and try to hope you can force a turnover. Early on, Duke did. They got the pick 6. And so they were playing the game they wanted to play.
You can think about it. It's almost like they got 3 turnovers. The turnover on downs is a thing. It's a choice you make. It's not as egregious as a fumble or an interception. But
and they still have to make the stop too. So yeah,
but it feels as though it's a turnover, given that the field position was pretty good for the first one, and it's really, really good for the second one. It's a sudden change in a sense.
yeah.
So you get 3 turnovers, if you want to categorize it that way, one of which is directly for a touchdown, and you score 10 points total off of those turns. Actually, I believe they scored their first touchdown off of the first 4th down stop, right? That was when they scored their.
Yeah, we were driving. We drove way down there. Then they got the ball after the stop, and then they ran the ball.
Yeah. So, I mean, in theory, most of their points were off of turnover-like situations, sudden change situations.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I would say is that I'm interested to watch, if we're just looking at it from Florida State's defensive standpoint, Adam had a really good opportunity this week to kind of talk about, hey, guys, when we do what we intended to do, which is to clog the middle because we know they want to run the ball between the tackles and be physical, and we force it outside, which is, the spilling things, and we watch that happen all the time with defenses. We spill it out there for a reason. Guys got to be home. Guys got to set the edge, and guys got to be ready to make a tackle. They can't take absurdly bad angles or have a tackle broken or get out run to the corner. Like, you can't do that kind of stuff, or else you find yourself in a ball game that doesn't have to be a ball game.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the hidden plays of the game. We don't talk about it as much as, the kick return or maybe the 4th down stop in the second half. But the 1st and goal late in the second quarter is a great example of what is correct. Doing your job correctly if you have contain on the outside. Akeem Dent is up there to make the play. I think Jerrion Jones rallies to make some that play as well. But it's 1st and goal. They're moving the ball meticulously down the field, and that forces them in a second and goal from a medium distance. And then that's when they get the holding penalty, and they essentially capitulate, and they say, we're just going to play for 3. But all the momentum is on their side at that point, and you hadn't contained very well. You hadn't set the edge very well, and you do on that play, and it changes the course of a drive. So to your point, yeah, I would think that there's some good tape to say, this is what not to do, Kalen DeLoach. This is what not to do, Tatum Bethune. And then good job, Akeem Dent.
So there's a question from Brandon right off the bat that I'm going to summarize that has to do with the rotation on the offensive line and whether that can cause inconsistencies. And it is interesting that they've chosen to do that now, but some of that, Brandon, it has been an awful lot about a lack of health.
Necessity.
They've had to do a lot of this. I don't think that this is something. I know they wanted to rotate guys, but I don't think they wanted to rotate as much as they've rotated across the board. I think that's
position.
True. Yeah. So there are times where I think, man, they're just trying to save some guys, save some bullets, if you will. Obviously, your most important games are now in front of you here, as you do have a chance to win this conference for the first time in a long time, and you have a real good chance to go to the college football playoff. And I think they're trying to do everything they can to be as healthy as you possibly can once you get there.
What would be your guys' 5 offensive line? If you knew in the Miami game you were going to have 5 guys, you could play them 60, 70 snaps, who would be your 5?
Stork at center. I want Walter Jones at left tackle.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to go down that road?
Jamie Dukes at guard.
All right, let's try to get
on
2023
team. The guys on this team.
So I'm going Robert Scott.
Yep.
Casey Roddick, Maurice Smith, Demetri Emmanuel, and Bless Harris.
Yep.
That's my 5.
Washington's going to be out there at guard if he's healthy for me.
Okay.
At one of the guards.
Right. But if
fair. Our center, if he could, maybe center.
Well, no, Maurice can start at center if he's healthy.
Yeah.
Washington's starting over one of those two, preferably Casey Roddick, who I'm not in love with.
The fact that these last couple of weeks, Robert Scott has been dressed out and has gone through warm-ups, but just hasn't played much. The fact that I think, I wonder if some of this is trying to get your 5 or 6 best guys healthy,
ready to go
for later in the year, and maybe at that point you do condense it. I don't know.
I would. I think you probably would want to at that point. I do think that's what they're trying to do. I don't think it's ideal to be rotating as much as they've had to, but part of it has been by necessity, and I do think Washington would have a place in that rotation. I agree with your tackles. I agree with your center. And I agree with one of your guards. One of them would be replaced by Washington.
And Darius even looked good at tackle. Every time I've watched him, he's looked pretty good this year.
Good lineman.
Yeah.
Just a good lineman.
He's been a really good player for you. So you got to get him back healthy too. It seems like every week we're saying got to get him back healthy, back healthy. So it's frustrating.
And at the buzzer, Mike, if Jimbo Fisher only wins 7 games, if he only wins 8 games, he's done, right?
I think so. Yeah. And what are the odds he's going to go undefeated like the rest of the way? He's still got LSU. He's still got somebody else really good. I think they're at LSU and at Ole Miss. Maybe they still have to play Ole Miss.
Yeah.
So you got to assume they're going to win. They're going to lose one of those 2 games. Look, Bruce Feldman, I thought, brought up a good point on Rosillo's podcast talking about that very topic. And like people keep bringing up the buyout because it's $75 million or whatever they would owe him. But if you keep him around till next year, you're still going to owe him $65 million. It's not like it goes from $75 million to $5 million.
Yeah.
The next year is still an enormous amount, an exorbitant amount of money too. To go into my Mark Jones thesaurus, it's an exorbitant amount of money, and that would be an ignominious end to Jimbo Fisher's tenure at Texas A&M. But yeah, if you're willing to fire him and you just don't want to do it because it's going to cost you $75 million, well, but you're going to be okay firing him the next year when it's $65 million. It's going to be a huge chunk, and it's going to be a punch to the gut either way to pay somebody that much money to not coach. But if you don't think he can turn it around and you're tired of living in 7-win land or 8-win land and that offense being like that, then yeah, I think you go ahead and pull the trigger. So yes, I would say if he only wins 7, if they go 7-5, he will not be back in 2024 would be my guess.
Also kind of cool that they let their teams know their kickoff time more than 6 days in advance. That's
just so they got at Ole Miss, Mississippi State at home. They're playing Abilene Christian. You know what I mean? That's who I thought.
That's what you're supposed
we
to
were
do.
Looking for with Florida. That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's hellacious, man. Bama, Tennessee, week off. South Carolina at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and then 2 weeks later at LSU. That's not fun.